today. This is a, don't go away yet. Stay right here. Lynn's going to leave and very soon go behind the camera. This is a family favorite of mine and something that our children have enjoyed. We're going to do chicken marsala. So I think with that, Lynn, I have to say, I actually did all the sous chefing too. I was going to introduce her as a sous chef, but she actually just arrived back from school a little while ago. So I was home prepping the meal, but she is going to be the camera person and of course is the executive director and producer. So I'm going to put you back.
All right,
camera.
Take it away.
All right. I'll give you a little bit of an overview. And by all means, I'm happy to entertain questions at whatever point. There'll be a couple of stages where we actually need to let things cook a little bit. So those are probably going to be the best times, but happy to entertain questions. So I'm going to just kind of do a quick overview. So this is I start with a boneless breast of chicken over here. Just to kind of give you a sense of what happens, we're going to, we're going to cut up the chicken. We're going to slice it and pound it and flour it and spice it. We're then going to prepare some vegetable mix. Essentially, it's going to be some garlic and some shallots primarily, and then we saute some mushrooms. All of this ultimately gets mixed together in a rich broth that we will make from the Marsala wine and chicken broth. So that's essentially the overview. So I'm going to kind of start right in. The first item that this is kind of the sequence for the most part. The first step is to prepare the flour mixture. So I like to use a Ziploc bag, and you'll see why momentarily. So I'm going to start with about a cup of flour, and I throw that in the Ziploc bag. We do reuse the Ziploc bags, by the way, so we're not tossing them out. And then adding to the Ziploc bag, we've got essentially a spice blend of oregano, thyme, and garlic powder. Now, for this particular, I love using fresh herbs, but for this particular exercise, I prefer the dry because it's a dry flour mix. So a lot of discussions about how to measure. I tend to use my hand when I'm doing this. I've kind of figured out what a teaspoon of spice is. So I'm a hand measurer myself. So there's the oregano, about a teaspoon of each, basically. Teaspoon of dried thyme. And then the garlic powder, about the same, okay? And then lastly, salt. I like to use sea salt. I'm gonna do about the same amount, about a teaspoon. Obviously, if you prefer less salt, you can. There's going to be a fair amount of salt and butter in this recipe, but both of those I think can be substituted or modified if you like. So, so seal up the bag and mix it up. So this is ultimately going to be what we're going to flour the chicken with, but I'm going to kind of move to the next step momentarily. So this is the mix. Eventually, we're going to have the sauce. So I'm going to just kind of go through the recipe with you right now. We use chicken stock, and I like to use the Pacific Foods low sodium, and it's free range chicken stock. So actually, I buy this by the case. I think we usually get this on Amazon, but because we use a lot of this, it's good. In fact, the rice that I've made that'll go with our dinner, I use the chicken broth when I cook the rice as well. So 2 cups of the chicken broth, and then the Marsala wine. I prefer to get a fairly decent Marsala when I'm cooking this. So I know you can buy the real inexpensive Marsala at the grocery store. This I got Wakefield Liquors. It's about 12 or 13 bucks a bottle. So it is certainly a good drinking Marsala, but it does a nice job when you're making a Marsala wine. So, about a 1 cup. So 2 cups of chicken broth and 1 cup of Marsala wine. We are also going to add tomato paste when we get to actually using the broth. So I like to use this toothpaste tube style. It's nice about this is it's you can use just as much as you want. It's double concentrated. We'll use about a tablespoon of that. I also use just the puree out of a can sometimes, and I found, unless I'm making tomato sauce or something like that, that is often more than I need. But one thing I've done is I've actually I've frozen that. So I'll take whatever I don't use out of those 6-ounce cans and put it in a small little snack bag of some kind, flatten it out and freeze it. And that way, whenever I need some, I can just kind of open the bag and I can kind of chunk out a couple of cubes of it. So that works really well. Also, just a little tip there. So I'm going to start in on the the rest of the veggies. I'll at least give you the recipe here. Shallots. So the veg mix I mentioned is like 2 good sized shallots. We're going to kind of prepare those, and maybe 3 cloves of garlic. And then also the veg is I sliced these already. It's about a 10-ounce package of crimini or porcini mushrooms. Last thing, of course, is there's some chopped up parsley. This will just be a little garnish when we're done that. So I think I'm ready to start in on the chicken. I have a crib sheet here, so hopefully I'll stay on track, and Lynn will make sure that if I get out of order. I did wash my hands before we got started. This is almost 1.5 pounds. This is one of those large chicken breasts, but so 1.5 pounds is it's a good 4 servings. 5 to 6 ounce servings when all is said and done. So we generally will cook this much because we'll have 2 servings for us, but then the chicken Marsala really keeps really well. It makes a great leftover, and so we'll put it away for a couple of days. I've even frozen the what we don't eat right away, and have it on another day. So the process for this is I usually cut the big ones in half, and then I'll slice each half. I like to use Santoku knives, which is what this is. And I actually have, where's my other one? Did I move it over here? Oh, here it is. Okay, gotta wash this out. I have a chopping knife and also a meat slicing. Santokus are nice because they're especially thin, and also they're very sharp. So again, this is a meat cutting version, and then this will be for the veg later. So I will cut each of these halves into, I would say, probably four pieces. Usually they'll make them about a 1/2 inch thick or so. And I'll do the same with the other half. Okay, so that's going to give me 8 pieces of chicken, cutlets. I am going to move my shallots over here because I'm going to cut them separately on a separate bowl. We'll talk about that in a minute. So let me get started on this. Actually, I have a great mallet. It was made from a piece of butcher block. My dad made it quite a few years ago. He and my mom were both great cooks, and he was always trying to make tools for the kitchen. So he actually even put his initials on this one. So it's still it's a handmade deal, but it's a great, it's got a nice flat surface. One of the things I will do to protect the mallet and also make less of a mess. Sorry about that. I should have had this ready. I knew I forgot something. I'll take a piece of saran wrap, and it's a little bit noisy here. I'm gonna flatten each of these. Okay, so there we are. That's the flattening part. I'm going to do a little bit of salt and pepper on these. Fresh ground pepper. I've got the garlic powder and the other spices in the flour mix, so I don't really worry too much about putting that on here. Sometimes I'll add a little garlic powder on these as well, depending on how I'm feeling. So I think we're ready to kind of flour these. Actually, I think I want to turn these on. I'm sorry?
You gotta cut those vegetables,
I
right?
got to cut the vegetables. Are we going to cut the vegetables? Am I going to do that now? I guess I am.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to cut the vegetables. Okay. All right. So let's work on these. First of all, on the mushroom, I just saved one. This may be obvious to some of you and maybe new information for others, but there's two things that you really don't want to wash. One of them is mushrooms. So I have a mushroom brush, and what I'll do is, kind of, brush off the any of the dirt or from them, rather than rinse them. I used to rinse them. I learned that at one point. The other thing is meat. I didn't talk about this, but this was just patted dry. There's two schools of thought, or there's probably more than two, but in terms of rinsing fish, meat, poultry, I think the safest thing is not to rinse them, because in fact, that whole process tends to generate more contaminated liquids. So I think the current thinking is don't rinse, let the cooking take care of any bacteria that might be on the meat. So that's what I did. I think, this had kind of dried a little bit because I took it out of the package, and I just kind of patted, paper towel, any moisture. So that's, so the meat and the mushrooms are two things I don't wash. So anyway, I mentioned two shallots. I'm going to thinly slice the shallots. I debated whether I should have this all set up and done, but then I figured I was going to run out of things to do. So I figured I'd go ahead and actually do it for you. So bear with me here. I generally will shop for kind of larger shallots. I think they add great flavor. So put that aside. Again, I'm using the chopping version of my Santoku. Nice job of sort of thin slicing vegetables in particular. Garlic is a little bit different. I know some of you are great Italian chefs, Sandra in particular. I've seen her in action. So I'm not teaching you anything you don't know here, Sandra, but I like to kind of smash my my garlic before mincing it up. So I'm going to use 3 or 4, and I also don't get too fussy with garlic peels, at least based on this particular dish. If there's a little bit on there every now and then, that's okay. So this is going to be a mince of the three good sized garlic cloves. Again, the knife has a nice chopping action for mincing and chopping. So that's my garlic. I'm going to put these over here. Okay, and I've got our mushrooms, and I think now I can flour my chicken, right? Okay, keep me on track. So what I have over here is 1/4 cup of pay attention now. Over here. Okay. In this pan, 1/4 cup of olive oil and about 2 tablespoons of butter. And I'm going to kind of get this going while I flour the chicken. And then over here, about 1 tablespoon, give or take, of butter. And this is for the mushrooms. I'm going to kind of get those going. Okay. And okay, so flouring is the fun part. It's also the messy part. You can tell I've been in the kitchen after I've made this. So these will all go in. And again, this was almost 1.5 pounds. So I'll throw them all in. Okay, so a little bit of this, flour mixture left over, but again, we'll toss that out after we're finished. Okay, so I'm going to turn this up some.
Joe, just let us know when you want us to ask questions, okay?
I think this is probably a good time. I can talk and cook at the same time. So yeah,
Cool.
By all means, if you have any questions.
So
I'd be
if
happy
anyone
to
has questions, you just have to unmute yourself. And I'm going back into mute.
Okay. I'm going to throw my mushrooms in also while we're getting the chicken ready. We actually did try to practice this a little bit, so I wasn't sure whether the timing was going to work, but I think we came reasonably close. So I'm going to cover that and let that kind of steam a little bit, turn on high, and Lynn will remind me to check it in a little bit.
Joe?
So Sandra has a question.
Okay, hi, Sandra, go ahead.
Not a question, but I'm glad to hear you say that sometimes the garlic skin gets in with the meal, because that happens to me as well. I don't get too.
It's totally fine, right? I mean, it's, yeah.
It's
The
just fine.
other thing is, I find that it never hurts. The other thing is, you'll notice I'm using cast iron here. Yeah. We have another lighter weight set of cookware that Lynn would prefer to use. She's not a big fan of these huge cast iron pots, because they're pretty heavy. But I enjoy them. I think there's nothing that beats cast iron, and I've had. Actually, this cast iron pan was my mom's, so it's been, it's got quite a few years on it. It's probably at least a 25 or 30-year-old, maybe more than that, probably. I'm making a mess. You know what happened is I got a little too close to the fire there. the bag melt a little. But I think, you could cook this in batches, certainly, if you are got a smaller pan. And of course, you can just cook less chicken also, if you prefer. But what I like about this is I'm pretty much able to get one batch done. How am I doing? Am I all right?
Great. So Joe, how did you start getting involved with cooking? Did your family have
Yeah, well,
some role in that?
I mentioned my mom and dad. So, my mom was Italian. Dad was Slovak. It's interesting because Dad actually, he was became much more of an Italian cook, chef, than the Slovak. He had a few Slovak recipes, but he really kind of really became an Italian by osmosis. And and my mom was a waitress for many, many years. So there were a lot of times when, he was cooking for us when we were, kids. And, she'd be working on, nights and weekends. But one of the interesting things is, she enjoyed cooking and would see the chef making a recipe. So I remember we used to really enjoy, just reinventing a recipe. And so this is how this thing came about. I saw it somewhere. We had a Marsala, and I said, "Oh, let's just try it." And we kind of invented it. But I remember kind of just trying to replicate recipes without having a recipe, and doing that, quite often with my mom. So that's the story. And we actually there was a period actually when Lynn and I were first dating. This goes back to the 1970s, I guess. Well, we actually did some catering. So, mom enjoyed cooking. So we actually had our own little, catering business, and we would, do events and weddings and so forth for various folks. So I'm gonna, I'm browning this. I don't think I can. Can we see that all right? Is that the? No. This is turning over nicely. This is going to be just sort of a lightly browned chicken.
So were there favorite recipes that they made?
Pasta was always a big one, and we did make our own pasta. Dad was very famous for making ravioli. What's interesting about his ravioli, he didn't have these little, delicate, evenly cut raviolis. Some of his raviolis were almost as big as calzones, if you know what those are. But again, it was a very simple ricotta, stuffing. But they were, of course, very good. And sauce, we would make tomato sauce. In fact, Lynn and I have been, past couple of years since we've been out here on the island, we have been making our own tomato sauce. Very hard to come by jars this year, but we scrounged enough, and we're able to make. I think we made maybe a couple dozen jars of tomato sauce, which we use on a variety of things. One of my favorites was pea soup, actually. Which is not particularly Italian, but I was a finicky eater, and pea soup is one of those things that I love. So obviously, whenever we had a ham and a ham bone, there was always going to be a nice hearty pea soup that was made after the ham was finished.
Joe,
All right. Yes.
just wondering, are
Is there another? No.
are you first generation?
I thought I heard somebody.
Did your mom come from Italy, or was she born here?
If you could talk a little louder, we didn't quite hear that question.
I was wondering if Joe is a first generation, or was his mother born here in the U.S.?
first?
Yeah. I was second. My parents were both born in Danbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
Their parents, all four, were from the Czech Republic and from Calabria.
Oh, Calabria.
So,
So I also noticed you have a bottle of red wine over there.
oh yes. we got
Is
a
that
couple
part
more
of the
lines.
cooking experience?
Well, absolutely, the cooking and the eating experience. So I'm going to have a toast. First of all, this is my first sip this afternoon. So about wine, this is a chicken dish. It's a fairly flavorful chicken dish. So turn this off a second. Generally a sort of a light red, so a Pinot Noir or a Grenache Brie. Is that the red?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a
Full-bodied white.
or a Chardonnay. Something fairly full-bodied goes well. I kind of like the red, a light red. So this is a Pinot Noir, C'est la Vie. Actually, our son and his girlfriend brought up a bunch of this. It's a French Pinot Noir. So we had a few bottles left over from Christmas, so we thought we'd have that. Okay, it was a little hard for me to hear there. Sorry about that with the frying going on. But all right, so there's our chicken. Again, most of it pretty nicely golden brown. I'm now going to prepare the veg. So I'm going to add just a touch more olive oil in the pan. Get this going again. Start with my garlic. And I'll let that saute for a couple minutes. So, how are we doing on our agenda?
So that's the garlic
Yeah.
and the
So
shallots.
This was the 2 shallots and the 3 clove garlic in there. Yeah. Okay.
So we're just waiting for that
When it's
to
ready.
add the mushrooms
Yep.
and the liquids and the tomato puree.
The mushrooms are definitely ready, so I can bring them in. Mushrooms have cooked nicely. And I like to kind of saute these separately in a little bit of butter before mixing them in. I think butter brings out the flavor of mushrooms. Okay, now we're ready for our liquids. As I said, we have our 2 cups of chicken broth and a good cup of the Marsala wine.
And the tomato puree.
Oh yeah, thank you. And then the last ingredient for this is about a tablespoon or so of the puree. I'm glad that you're keeping me on track here. It's a little hard to keep track of all this.
My pleasure.
Okay, so this is on relatively high heat right now because I'm just trying to get the sauce to a simmer. But I think we can add our chicken to it. Okay. We've got a nice Nice boil starting up. The chicken pretty much gets covered. Let me just show you a little bit here because you'll see. See that?
Okay.
Okay, so it's a fair amount of liquid for the chicken because what's going to happen is this is going to cook down. Ideally, at least 20 minutes. Sometimes we'll leave the lid off for a few minutes and then I'll cover it. 20 to 30 minutes, and I just kind of keep an eye on it. What you really want it to do is, let the sauce thicken, because what you end up with is a pretty nice, rich, very light gravy once this cooks down a little bit. Okay.
So,
All right.
so then we were gonna
Oh yeah.
tell
Okay.
folks about our,
So maybe while this is cooking, we actually had. I'm going to turn this down. Right. So we're going to let that cook for a few minutes. I am going to cover that. Thought maybe we could share just a little bit of the history of where we live, which is the Gully Schoolhouse. I'm actually surprised that some folks actually never heard of the Gully Schoolhouse. It's been something we thought everybody knew about. But this was our house was originally one of the 5 original schoolhouses on the island. So this was known as the Gully School. And hence, we are overlooking a gully, which then overlooks Payne Farm, off of, we're on Payne Road. So anyways, it's one of the house, it was when the school was opened, the big school in 1933, I think this sat dormant for a while. And my guess is sometime in the 1940s, it was converted to a cottage. It was not insulated. In fact, there was a pretty major fire in the school, which completely destroyed the ceiling and pretty much burned the whole roof. So when we bought the house, maybe I'll show you a couple of pictures. I'm going to kind of move this around for a second. Let's see here. What is that? I wanted to zoom in. So you know what? I'm just going to bring this up to you. Okay. So this is actually a picture of the school. This is the photo that we discovered that's in one of Bob Downey's books. So what's interesting, and I don't know if you can see this that well, but there's no trees around. So this is looking across the gully into the fields, and this area here is where the airport is today. But there was a bell tower. Sorry, I don't know where the bell went, but when we decided to do some work back in 2010, we kind of replaced, this whole porch had come off. Oops, the porch had come off, but we kind of put it back as a way to expand the house a bit. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a group of rather unfriendly looking kids.
unhappy.
Unhappy. It's hard to say whether they were unhappy or whether it was just the
Bad photography.
bad photography. But this was apparently taken in 2010. It was taken right on the front porch. One of the cool things is there were 2 separate doors, on the school, I think on most of them on the island. I believe that was, to segregate the boys and the girls. But in either case, we found one of these batten doors. You can see it like these are batten doors here. We found one up in the attic. So we actually have it, and we're in the midst of refurbishing it, and we're actually going to hang it in our upstairs. So that's the school, the house rather, as it was back in, this is a little bit later, but this is pretty much the way the house looked in 1990 when we bought it. You can see the typical A-frame structure. We've been really working on this since we bought it, but I would say the major construction effort started about 11 years ago, and we put a front porch on to replace that was taken off. This was actually just 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, where we completely removed the roof, and that is, I think, you can get a sense of what our house looks like today. We did restore or put back the cupola on the roof. It's actually, it's not a bell tower anymore, but you can see it, and we usually have the light on. And Ray and Sue Torrey, they approve. They tell us they enjoy seeing our cupola lit up every night. I'll go a little bit further. This is the kitchen I'm sorry, I've got a little reflection here.
All right.
Yeah, this is the kitchen as it was back in 1990, and it remained. We had this for about 15 years before we did anything with it. The kitchen of today, which is the one that we're in today, is you can see now is one that we kind of redid as part of our recent expansion over the past couple of years. So a little bit of
Oh no, I love that
history
old
there.
sink. That old sink was very cool. It kind of looked like an old kitchen sink, but I liked it.
It was, well, we thought it was cool for about 15 years.
Yeah.
But,
That makes sense.
It was chipped in a few places. Yeah, it was a little rusty, rust stained. I didn't show you the bathroom, but the bathroom was the same vintage. So we had, a 1940s vintage, the rounded bathroom sink, and a gorgeous tub that was very deep. But that was also, we dispensed with that. But we lived with it for quite a few years, actually.
I love
the
that
old,
you're
the old
including your
fixtures.
house's story as well as the story of the kitchen. It's very cool. Thank you.
Well, yeah, well, thank you. Actually, we can't show you the living room because it's a mess, okay? But we can show at least this, just so I wanted to explain that this was a wall here, and it was just a doorway, into the living room. But this variation of it, we did just back in 2018. So I guess it's just about 2 to 3 years ago that we decided to, open it up. And, we, for as long as we've been married, we always had some kind of an island or peninsula. And because we do enjoy cooking, this has always been kind of the center of, socializing and gathering with friends and family. So we found that, again, we moved here full time just in 2018. It was Groundhog Day 2018. And once we were here full time, we realized that this was a little claustrophobic, and we needed to kind of capture that same openness. So, we actually completed this not too long ago, and we're very happy with it because it gives us, again, that open feel and the ability to kind of, eventually, when people can come back over again and we can socialize, they can sit on the other side of that island and we can share a glass of wine together. So, all right, I think, how am I doing?
Joe, very well.
Joe,
Yeah. Yes.
I have, it's Pat. And
Hey, Pat.
I think what's really amazing with your story is how you explained it to us. When I asked, well, who did the building? You did the building. And I said, well, who was your Sue builder? And she said, there she is over there. She's the Sue chef and the Sue builder. And so you and Lynn together did that entire house, outside and in. And I think it's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Well, again, I don't know that I shared that. My dad was he was a carpenter and a builder. So I always like to say, I'm a carpenter's son. And so the only job I ever had growing up was, right up into college was, working in construction. So I was fortunate that I really learned the trades, from my dad and my uncle. They were brothers. My dad and his brother Andy were, they worked together for many years. And again, from the time I was, 9 years old up till college, I was always, around working. So I learned the trade from both of them. And it's served me well, but I enjoy doing it. So we always find another project and
Right. It was a labor of love.
Yeah. I guess I can tell this brief story. I think Pat might have heard this story already, but over the past 3 years, one project was redoing the bathroom, and we started doing that when we moved in here, Groundhog Day 2018. But we were without a bath. I had to pull the toilet out for about 2 months, and we're living here. So there was a period where we had, Robbie Brown put an outhouse out in the yard there, and that was pretty much what we we used, but it was, in the wrong time of year.
Right,
It was
timing was impeccable.
February, March.
February and March.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the year later, the following year, we decided, okay, we're going to do the kitchen, and we were living here. So there was about a 2.5 month period where we had no kitchen. So that was, basically a electric skillet and a microwave in the living room. And again, we were doing it around this time of year. So
Right.
not the ideal. Couldn't use the barbecue, but
And we're still married.
yeah.
It says a lot for endurance.
So are we thinking?
Yeah, for sure. It's an endurance of a lot of things, including our marriage. So I think we're close. Any other questions about what I've shared in terms of the recipe? What do you think? Obviously, you haven't seen it or tasted it yet, but
Looks luscious.
I want to know, Joe, if you deliver.
Yeah, yeah.
so what I will say, I'm going to let that cook just for another couple minutes. This is something where we'll do like a green vegetable and rice or pasta. So we decided we were going to do string beans tonight. So I'm going to plate this. I think this is close to ready. And then I cooked some rice. We cooked some basmati rice, like I mentioned. I just prepared that with some chicken broth. So I don't know how, I'll explain how I do the rice. I always like to saute the dry rice in a little bit of olive oil. So I'll take, like this was a cup of rice. So before I do that, I'll throw a couple of tablespoons of olive oil in a pan, and then throw the dry rice in and kind of saute the dry kernels for a few minutes until you get that nuttiness coming out. And then add the liquid. In this case, I added 2 cups of chicken broth. So I find that gives the rice a nice texture. And I also think it kind of brings out that little nutty flavor of rice. This is like a basmati rice. So that's it. So I think I'm going to plate this. I think we're close here. So I want to show you the finished product here.
I'll put some rice.
We'll start with the rice. Yeah, the rice first. Yeah. And these are our green beans. And here we are. I think we did it. So there's our chicken marsala with mushrooms and a little bit of basmati rice and just very simple steamed green beans. Oh, you know what we like to put on? We are actually, despite what I'm saying about all this butter, I don't cook with it all the time. In fact, Lynn is very, very selective, and when she lets me cook with it, I like to use this. This is just a balsamic reduction. I find that gives a nice flavor to veggies, and you don't have to add any butter and salt and that sort of thing. So there's our meal. Okay.
Wow. It's yummy.
And there it is.
Wow.
Lynn, you did
We
a
all
great
know where
job.
you live.
Especially after our little
Right.
tutorial about the house.
Yeah. That was wonderful.
Well, listen, you are.
I thought
you
that
are
was
all invited.
interesting.
Susanna?
Sorry, I was just gonna say,
Go
I
ahead.
thought it was interesting how you did the rice. So I'm not Italian.
You
Full
look
discretion, surprise. And we always just grew up with like the whitest rice ever, and it was boiled, So this is a really interesting
Yep.
aspect of rice I just didn't even know about. So you can cook it with the juices.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a nice change up there. So, well, as I was saying, once we are all vaccinated and we're or we get rid of COVID, we'll have to have everyone over. Maybe not all at the same time. We can't fit everybody, but we'd love to have you over, and maybe you could sample our chicken marsala in person. So
Thank you.
thank you all for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed it.
We have.
Oh,
Joe?
And Lynn, it was great.
Yeah.
Lynn, you did a great job. You were in the background, but you did a great job, Lynn.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You make a good team.
Next time we'll get some checks, maybe?
What?
Joe and Linda, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Feel
You're
better.
welcome.
Joe.
Joe, I
You're
have,
very welcome.
Joe, I have a question. This is Millie.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question. Do you mind just reviewing with me real quick, what went into your sauce? Unfortunately, I was listening, but, I was traveling while this was going on for a bit. So,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
do-
No, the sauce is very simple. So 2 cups, and again, proportion for the chicken. You know, the chicken was about
For the
a pound and a
size,
half,
sure.
a pound, 6 ounces. 2 cups of the chicken broth, low sodium chicken broth, 1 cup of Marsala, and about a tablespoon of the extra thick tomato puree. That's pretty much the broth. And again, what went in at first was the 2 shallots
the shallots.
sliced, the 3 cloves of garlic minced,
Mhm.
and that's it.
And the mushrooms.
And the mushrooms, yeah, and the
Right,
mushrooms.
Right. Okay. And you said a tablespoon of the
You know,
puree?
Yeah, about a
Okay,
tablespoon
thank you.
or so. I had this written down, so if any of you are interested, happy to share the written recipe with you. My email is jloyajr. J,
Also,
first
if
initial
you
J,
could
Y,
send it to us, Joe, at the
yeah,
library.
okay,
Um,
I'll do that.
because then we'll share it on
And I'll be-
on YouTube.
Great.
Good.
Okay, we'll definitely
Great.
do that then. I'll be happy to share the recipe. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you,
so
Joe.
much.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you,
sign
Joe.
off now.
Thanks,
All right.
Joe.
Take
Joe.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Lynn.
Take care, Lynn.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Great. You did a great job.
Recording.